Hello, everyone. I'm Linda Nickell, and welcome to the Happiness Hour. Tonight, my guest is Lisa Langell. Lisa is an award-winning wildlife, bird, and nature photographer whose passion for the outdoors is matched only by her passion for teaching others. A sought-after speaker, Tamron image master, and experienced field workshop instructor, Lisa is known for helping photographers sharpen both their technical skills and their ability to truly see the natural world. Whether she's photographing elusive wildlife or guiding photographers in the field, she brings enthusiasm, expertise, and a genuine love of sharing her knowledge. In tonight's session, photography Q&A plus an inspiration session, we'll explore the creative and technical sides of photography, from finding your personal style and composing stronger images to editing choices, gear decisions, and how to stay motivated when inspiration fades. If you're on Instagram, you can find her at Langell Photo, and you can connect with her through her website at langellphotography.com. And I'll make sure that I post those in the link below. So with that, Lisa, welcome to the Happiness Hour.
Thank you. I am really genuinely excited about being here tonight. I know you were nervous about whether or not we'd say yes or no.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's an availability issue, but other times, Mason brings those requests to me and I'm like, yeah, that sounds like fun. And this was one of those things that's like, I just like the creativity around this. And it's similar to some things I've done with some small groups on my own. And it just, I don't know, these things tend to be full of joy and fun, and you don't need an audience of 300 to have a good time. And I'm really, really excited to do this. And so, kind of in the spirit of the night of what we've already been doing, which is bantering back and forth, this session that I've prepared, it's not going to be a PowerPoint all night where we're going to learn 900 new techniques. What I want to do is inspire people to be a little bit more creative. Talk a little bit about your photography and your journey and why you're doing photography. And then I will also open up the Q&A to any question you have that's in my wheelhouse about photography. I don't care whether you're using your cell phone and you want to get some kind of technique around composition or something you can do with your phone, or whether you got $40,000 worth of gear and you don't know what settings to use or something like that. I will do my very best to answer it. And I love those kinds of questions because I like teaching people the how, but I really, really like teaching the why behind it because I feel like that's missing in a lot of instruction. You go out to a workshop, I've had literally hundreds of people tell me, I took a class or I went to a workshop from so and so, and they just went with my camera and they didn't really explain why I'm doing what I'm doing. I I used to work with kids with disabilities. I was an educational psychologist for 20 years. I love helping people learn from the beginning and helping them understand things. And it's never embarrassing to have to ask a question. That's how I feel about it. Because who's not here are the people that aren't asking the questions, that aren't interested in expanding their minds. You have to be brave to learn stuff, and I want to support people as best as they can with that journey and make it fun, right? We're here to ultimately photography should be fun, at least most of the time. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. So I've got a question for you, and I am going to kind of move back and forth with sharing my screen and not sharing my screen, just flipping back and forth. But I'm going to share my screen for just a second, and we are going to get this party started here. So first of all, thanks again for joining, and thank you so much, Linda, for having me tonight. This is just a fun vibe. I love it already. Um, I want to have tonight, in the time that we have, some good conversation, some good inspiration, and some Q&A, whatever that Q&A might be from you, I am more than happy to help you with that. One of my favorite quotes, and I hope it helps inspire you, because today I really want it to be something inspirational and useful for you. But this is one of my all-time favorite quotes. The two most engaging powers of a photograph are to make new things familiar and familiar things new. And that is from William Makepeace Thackeray. He wrote that in the 1800s. Forgive me, I don't remember the date anymore. The quote is what left a permanent impression on me. And I think that's something I really try to do in my photography is not just shoot more of the same. For an example, I do a workshop. Well, I do 8 workshops a year in Alaska. I've been doing workshops since 2012 in Alaska. I see the same things every week with people. There's still a lot of variety in that, but after a while, some of the most abundant species, you're like, how else can I shoot this black-legged kittiwake? I've seen thousands of them week after week, but yet you still try to find something different and take that familiar thing and make it new to someone. And so this quote really inspires me to push when I'm feeling like I'm empty and I don't know how else to shoot something. There is always another way to shoot something. And so, on that note, just a little bit about me. I am formerly from Michigan, but I live in Arizona now. But as of probably November, I will be a new resident to near Longmont, Colorado, which is about 30 minutes north of Denver. We are in the process of moving currently. I've been a bird watcher since I was 8 years old. I've had a camera in my hand since I've been about 8 years old. I was a former floral designer and educational psychologist for many, many years. And birds have changed my life. So I'm really curious, and you can think about it before you answer, but what is one thing that has really changed your life, photography or not? One thing, and type that into the chat window whenever you want to. But what I value in photography specifically, I love creating emotionally evocative photographs. If I'm not creating an image that makes me feel something, I feel like it doesn't deserve to be posted. And I have a little personally, this is not something I cast on to everybody else. It's my own little personal kind of litmus test. If I can't come up with a good title for it, then it's probably not a good enough image to put out there. Like if it's not evoking something that I feel it's title worthy and a title comes from it, then I don't post it. And I try to be really creative in my titles and not just, you know, put a picture of an eagle and call it the eagle has landed because I think everybody on the planet that's taken a picture of an eagle has called their picture that at some point or another. I really like breaking rules and boundaries. Not like stuff that's going to throw me in jail, but taking the traditional rules around photography and really questioning them, questioning the why, questioning the what for, questioning, well, what else can I do? How far can I take this and still have it be a good photograph, if not a better photograph? And I also like to distinguish. I think this is such a huge thing and if you came to out of Chicago or the Merritt Island, you might remember this, but I talked a lot about the purpose of images. Is it going in a magazine? Is it going in a calendar? Is it going in a competition? Or is it going on the wall in your living room? And there are different sets of rules for those things. But unfortunately, especially for wildlife photography, we are often only taught one set of criteria. We completely miss the mark on getting things that are wall worthy, if you will, and there are different requirements. And so I really try to go in that direction more. I like thinking beyond the traditional mechanisms for photography. I love, love, love developing others' creativity. I do whole workshops on that, called my photo artistry series, and that is something I'm just very passionate about. And I like expanding the purpose and utility of our photographs so they don't just live on social media or they don't just live on our hard drives. And I really love inspiring others to do the same. We're all on this journey together at different points, and truly one of the biggest joys for me in photography is meeting the other people. This is an experience to be shared, even though it's an individualistic sport. There's so many times when we come together because of photography, and I think that's one of my favorite things about the whole thing. And so to kick this off, I really want this to be interactive. And tonight really isn't about photography I mean, it is, but it's not just about photography. Like, here's how you would shoot this, and here's how you would shoot that. Feel free and ask those questions. But for me tonight, I really feel it's about why photography matters. And that's what I want to kind of dig into tonight with you. So I'd love to start with something a little different. And you can type the responses in your chat window. We'll have some other things where you'll be able to talk out loud, but I don't want everybody over talking everyone. But I want you, in your own words in the chat window, to finish this sentence. Photography gives me blank, whatever that might be. Might give you a headache, it might give you joy, it might give you a depleted bank account. I don't know. Just you let me know what photography gives to you. And I will stop sharing and we can take a look at some of those responses in the chat window. And hello to those who introduced yourselves. I appreciate that. So photography gives you what?
So we've got people saying memories, frozen moments of my life, joy and peace. Joy is very popular in here. Kevin says better eyes. I like that.
I do too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
if I could comment on that one,
Sure.
I was gonna say better vision, but I thought that sounds kind of cliche. And in my case, I had a serious eye infection and almost lost an eye about 2 years ago. And I
Wow.
found that when my all of my distance vision was getting pretty bad, but with the digital camera, my close-up vision was still spot on. And
Wow.
and so only with digital it worked, but I could see where I couldn't, and it got me through. And my eyesight is back. It's almost 100% at this point. But
Wow.
so it was a little bit different. So I specifically said my eyes and not just vision.
I love that. Like literally, photography gave you
Yeah.
something back. That is amazing. And I'm glad, right? I mean, losing that as a
Oh,
photographer, I
yeah.
can't imagine.
It got me through a very depressing, very tough time when I was pretty
Yeah.
afraid of losing my sight.
Yes, that is honestly an amazing story. I'm so glad that you're successful with that. And yeah, definitely scary. I can only imagine. Yeah. I love these responses, including yours, but a deeper observation of birds, that I can definitely appreciate. A chance to share the beauty of where I live. Yeah, photography, even though it's sort of an individual sport, you go out there with your camera and you shoot the things that you see. It's so neat to be able to share it with other people and share your vision of it. This is how I saw that tree, or this is how I saw that deer, or whatever it is you're shooting. Focus. It blocks out the mental clutter. Elaine, I can so relate to that. Like my mind goes 100 miles an hour, but I put that camera in front of my eyeballs, and the only thing I'm worried about is getting that thing in the frame with the right exposure and the right shutter speed and, getting the animal. I'm a wildlife photographer primarily, getting that in focus. So I completely understand. I think it's wonderful that we can have those moments of zen. I tend to be a little ADHD. That is a good thing. Photography, Kathy said, photography gives me time and nature away from the daily stress. 100%. It's the excuse, right? It's the purpose why you're going out there. Sort of like camping isn't camping unless you have a campfire. Otherwise, you're just sitting in the woods. And I feel like photography is sitting in the woods with a purpose. It just gets you out there and gets you doing something. Photography brought some special people into my life. Donna, 1000% agree with you on that. Same for me. Photography gives me the way of looking at things differently. Will this make a great photo or not? I agree, Joe. And sometimes it's almost an Achilles heel. Like, God forbid, we just look at something like we were talking earlier. Um, oh my gosh, the name just escaped me, and I apologize. Shirley, she was in the parking lot. She's like, "There's this amazing sunset," and me, I'd be like, "Amazing sunset," but there's a cart in the way, and a car, and a telephone pole, and it's like, oh my gosh, God forbid, we just take a picture to remember the thing, and it doesn't have to be, Nat Geo worthy. But I agree with you and that it gives you the way of looking at things differently. And Shirley said, sharing something that seems ordinary to most, but so extraordinary when you focus or zoom in. Absolutely. Absolutely. Linda, did you respond in here?
I didn't, but what came to my mind was freedom. It gives
Yeah.
me the freedom to play because I don't allow myself to do that. We all have our full-time jobs that completely stress us out. But when I have my camera, I get to play. And,
Yeah.
usually a, a clock isn't something that I pay attention to. So I'm going to say freedom.
It's interesting you say freedom because I was asking my own self this question. These questions, by the way, are fresh. I didn't like recycle them from some other workshop. They were fresh for tonight. And so I was thinking like, okay, how would I answer this? And freedom was the first thing that came to mind. And then the other thing that came to mind was autonomy because I can be individualistic. I support myself through this career. I support, my husband works for me. This company supports the two of us. We work darn hard to do it. And, sometimes you don't get your autonomy because there's the long laundry list of things that need to be done. But on the other hand, I left a really nice career as a educational psychologist because I was so passionate about this. And so, I can't get fired from my own company, right? So it kind of goes with me wherever I go, and that gives me the autonomy. Yeah. Very, very good. Anybody have comments about these things? This is meant to facilitate discussion. So thoughts or comments? Everyone's scared. Should I bring up another question?
Well, I'll speak up. It's
Okay,
helping me
thanks.
get out of my little box and being shy about everything. Like
Yeah.
this last week, I actually sent a text to all my neighbors saying, I need to practice taking pictures of people and I need models. Like I'd like to practice group pictures. And two
Yeah.
or three have actually replied.
That's a very brave thing. I teach portraiture in some of my Magic of Cowboys workshops that we do, and it's my passion with that, my desire to do that beyond I love the whole cowboy thing is I had a miserable experience learning portraiture, Debbie, and I felt like everyone I tried to take a class from or go to like a photo shoot with, it was all, and this is not going to be offensive. I don't mean in any way offensive to men in here, but the classes I took, it felt like it was all lecherous men that wanted to photograph 18-year-old scantily clad models. And I'm like, I do not want to do this. And none of them were interested in teaching despite me taking classes. And it was just like a glorified photo shoot and it was very condescending and it embittered me to portrait photography for a long time. And then I learned it in a different way and I still can so appreciate how intimidating it is to be the photographer and stand in front of models or whoever they are and take their picture. And you have to work through it, but it is liberating when you can finally get past that and realize I know they look at you like you should know everything that you're doing, but this is a two-way street and a process and the same technique with one person isn't going to work necessarily the same with another. And it's a dance between the two of you. And if they can understand you need to take a lot of pictures because sometimes that process is what gets you to the right pose, as opposed to, okay, hold your arms this way and then hold your arms that way and stand this way. Like there's some formulaic recipe. There are some general things, but it's a dance and you don't always know. It's like a custom recipe for someone, and you can't just go in there and go boom, 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 especially if you're doing a variety of different types of things with people and you've got different light to contend with and, just all kinds of different things. I hope that helps you. Are you nervous about it at all?
Um, they're my neighbors, so I'm maybe not that nervous. And I made
Good.
sure they knew I was just learning and they were my practice models.
Yes.
And we'll see. We'll see how well it goes.
It's intimidating, it's nerve-wracking, but I feel for you and I'm excited for you because there is nothing better, in my opinion. I mean, I do wildlife photography all the time. Nothing better than taking an extraordinary portrait of someone and giving it to them because it makes them feel better. That picture has legs. That picture, even someday when they pass away, that's going to be the picture that they use in the memorial service or in an obituary. And I hate to be morbid with that, but it's so true. Um, Portraits done well are just precious, and I'm excited you're on this journey to do this.
I know
And
I'd rather take pictures of birds, but that's not helping me get out of my little box.
I applaud you for I genuinely applaud you for doing that and getting out of your box and pushing yourself. That's the hardest thing. It's so easy to be in your comfort zone. And even that doesn't get comfortable after a while because you know you should be doing more and you're uncomfortable at being in your comfort zone. So hats off to you. I'm proud of you for that.
Thank you.
All right. Any other comments, thoughts?
I think we're ready for that next question. I
All
think that was a
right.
nice primer.
All right, good, good, good. And if you guys want me to go in a different direction, I can, but I just kind of get some discussion flowing here for the moment, and then we will go from there. Um, so as we go forward, I feel like tonight really needs to be more about helping each of us leave with a little bit more of what you just typed or what you just said, a little more inspiration, a little more of what matters. And although there's all different types of people, people who like to compete, people who like to, earn awards, people who like to challenge themselves, people who don't care about any of that. Um, for me, the photography part, I feel like sometimes gets lost when we're just in competition mode. I support the idea of competing, but sometimes I run into those who feel like if I don't compete, I've got nothing. And there's so much more. This photography thing to me is a medium for exploring and getting to know the world. It's the way you have connections. It's the glue when you're sitting next to somebody in an airplane and you realize they share the same things as you with the joy of photography. Or going on a workshop. I had a client on a workshop and turns out this other random lady showed up and they lived 6 miles from each other and they didn't know each other and they walked away absolute besties. It's those kind of serendipitous things that I love. All right. So if you could only save one photograph you've ever taken, deleting the rest, I know the horror, but if you could only save one photograph, which one would you keep and share why you'd keep it? It doesn't have to necessarily be the best photograph, but what one photograph would you keep and why? And you don't even have to share the photo or anything like that. Just think about it and why would you keep it?
How do you pick when you have tens of thousands of photographs?
I know. I know. Well,
Well,
and this is why we're going to talk about it. Why would it be the one you keep? It doesn't have to be the best one. This isn't the one that won the super, world champion of awards necessarily. It could be.
I just
But,
love the scene behind you.
oh, thank you.
That's really eye-catching to me.
Thank you. This mountain here is it's in Gold Canyon, Arizona, which is about maybe an hour from where I live. And this photo is at one of the ranches. I captured it at one of the ranches where we do photography. And this is called Holy Hill, but sometimes I call it Holy Hell because our cowboys will run down it like at full speed, and I have no idea how they do it on their horses. So, but anyway, beautiful area. All right, we're starting to get some responses in. I love it.
So I'll have a little comment about it because I try to live current,
Yeah,
right? So what are my current pictures? I have a lot that are older that I really like, my first birds in flight when I learned enough to quit caring about ISO and just get a good sharp picture.
sure.
Um, but I mean, recently is this one behind me. I went on
Yeah.
a workshop for Texas Hill Country birds, and one of the key birds was the painted bunting, and I was trying to capture them in. This is the only series where the bird was coming to me and made eye contact, and just the sweep of the wing is just for me. This is beautiful.
It is beautiful, and he's looking right at you, and it's in focus, which you know how hard that can be on these types of shots. That is
Thank
awesome.
thank goodness for pro capture, right?
Yes. So you must use the OM system.
Yep.
Awesome. Awesome. Awesome.
I, I
Yeah.
I was just on a call with one of your biggest fans, Lee Hoy.
Oh yeah. He's from Texas. I was just
He,
texting him the other day.
yeah, he talks about you all the time about people who inspire him.
Oh, say I hope he says good things. If not, I'm gonna have to pay him more to. Well, you can give him a little what for me if you want. He's like a brother. He's a good guy. We get along
He's
well.
easy to give what for too.
Exactly. All right. I'm seeing some other comments, and I love this. Maybe this is the psychology in me, but I always love to understand what gets people fired up, what touches people, what motivates people. And I love this. The keep the photo of the hubby and children. Pretty good priority, Wanda. I love that. Heidi says a photo of my mom walking the beach during winter. It was one of our last trips before both of our lives changed. That's a beautiful moment. And again, it may or may not be the most beautiful photo, technically, competition-wise, but those are the ones that you keep, the ones that make you feel something, right? Donna says, currently I rarely take pictures of people, but if I could only keep one, it would be a photo I took of a niece when she was 5 years old. She's 45. I love that. I love that. Again, it's the things that matter, the people that matter. And that's another reason what's pushed me in my photography to include people more. Of course, when I'm doing wildlife, it's usually just wildlife, but that has pushed me to do more portraiture. I'm not going to be a high school senior portrait person or, business headshots or things like that. But I love capturing people doing what they're passionate about and just in their own element is what I absolutely love. Let's see. Kathy said one photo is a photo of my dad and I pulling in halibut together at the back of the boat in Alaska. Woohoo! I love Alaska. This photo was our last trip together in Alaska. Oh, I love that you have that memory. And Joe said the photo I would keep would be one of my wife. I'm widowed, so any photo of her always brings back great thoughts and memories. I love, and I haven't asked yet what all your favorite things are to photograph, but I love like these are the things that are important. And so, you know, as you, Debbie, go off on this portrait journey, you're going to have a lot of impact for people by the photos that you take, even if they're not perfect. Realize you can work on perfection, but these are the things that end up mattering to people, the pictures. I was going through tons of pictures. My mom passed away about a year and a half ago, and I brought all of those photos back from Michigan to organize. And now I'm trying to move to Colorado. And these pictures, the little goofy pictures where the feet are cut off or there's, a plant growing in the back of their head, doesn't matter. These are the fun things that you remember and the things that are important. So keep taking those. Debbie said, a photo of the path of Sparks Lane and Cades Cove on a misty morning. It's one of my favorite places. Again, the things that you have an emotional connection to tend to be the things that you favor the most. A whooping crane family, that's special unto itself. Flying over water and land in Aransas, that's a place I need to get to. The species about which I'm most passionate and my favorite place. Oh, well then, Kevin, I'll have to pick your brain when I want to go to Aransas because it is on my bucket list for sure. And Shirley said it would be the family Christmas shot with the most of my kids, my sisters, their kids, and my father. I love it. And a photo of my oldest son at age 4, now 41, running around along the beach on Cape Cod. I can just envision these photos without even seeing the people. I can just imagine what they might look like, and it does make you feel something here. And that's something I'm very passionate about. As I said before, is taking pictures that don't just make you see something, but really are emotionally evocative. And all of the things you all listed, I can imagine give that to you in spades. Anybody have any other comments or are you trying to do some of this now? Do you look at your photos now that you're understanding what some of your favorite photos are? Do you apply some of those inspirations to your new work, or how do you go about it?
Although my father was the one who taught me photography, it was my mom who inspires me to keep moving forward and photographing the things that I love, which just so happened to be the things she loved too.
Aw. And how old were you when your dad got you started?
Oh, I think I was about 8.
Oh,
Yeah.
same as me. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. My dad was tired of me bitching about, having to walk on a trail. So he handed me a camera, said, shut up.
I love it. I love it. It's a really good thing to walk on a trail with. Just you
Yes.
never walk fast. That's the only thing. It's like if you're going with someone going on a hike and going on a hike with a camera, it might as well be the same as bowling and baseball. Like you have a round thing and nothing else is the same, right? So that's
Pretty much.
awesome. Yeah, pretty much. I love it. Anyone else have anything to share or
Yeah, well, I don't, I'm not much of a people photographer, although I hang around with some portrait photographers, and Linda uses me to take pictures at her Texas Through Her Lens museum reception. So I'm taking more people pictures.
good?
So I am getting more warmed up to that, but I also do a lot of street photography. So I am taking people pictures. They just don't know it.
I will share a very quick story. A couple of you may have heard me share this story before about street portraiture. So, when 100 million years ago, like I want to say 2008, 2009, I don't know, somewhere in there, I went to this weekend photography class from an out of town instructor, and there were two instructors, and he did a lot of street portraiture, and he did other things too. And he, unbeknownst to me, my boyfriend at the time, I had made a little photo book way back when, and he brought it in to show the instructor. And like me, I'm mortified about that now because the last thing I would do was bother an instructor. Here, look at all my pictures, after a presentation. But he did. And the guy's like, hey, these are really good, but you need to work on your people. And I was like, I don't do portraiture at that time. And he's like, no, no, you need to work on people, not just the photographs of people, but the getting to know people and it kind of reaching out into your community. And I'm thinking, gosh, I do a lot of that now. I'm a psychologist, da 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 da. And I really didn't fully understand what he meant, but he's like, I teach this street portraiture workshop. I think you might like it. It would be good for you. He said, but I'm not trying to sell you on it. It's all sold out this year, but just think about it someday because I really think it'd be good for you. And I'm like, okay, yeah, yeah. Well, he called me up a couple months later and he's like, hey, a lady canceled. She had a health issue. She canceled. She's willing to sell her seat for almost nothing if you want to buy it. And I was like, okay, it was in South Carolina and Savannah, Georgia, not South Carolina. So I went and I paid dearly because it was last minute and the airfare was extraordinary and blah blah blah. And you go and it was a week and the whole time I'm going, I should be on Tybee Island shooting the birds. Like, what am I doing shooting the people? I don't want to do this. And yet the class started and we had to learn how to photograph each other and get comfortable with things and learn about light and all that. But every day he gave us an assignment that was more challenging and got us connecting with more and more people in the random public. And it started out like, just go find somebody and strike up a conversation and then see if you can take a snapshot when you're done and just to commemorate it and on every day harder and harder challenges until the last challenge on the seventh day was to find somebody previously explore somewhere in Savannah that you want to take this person to and then do an entire portfolio of them. And I'm like, oh crap. No, and yet I did it. And it ended up, quite honestly, being one of the most powerful experiences I've ever had. And I mean that so sincerely. I met this street performer who agreed to go with me, and we did all kinds of really cool shots. They ended up being in all these restaurants, and there's a whole other sidebar to that was quite nice. But the interesting thing is it broke me out of my shell to do that. And so I went a couple years later to Imaging USA when it was in Louisiana in New Orleans. And a friend of mine and I went, and we went in the morning, in the evening, actually, one night after the classes, we went and photographed the French Quarter. We're just doing like pieces and parts and windows and, anything that just looked interesting, like you'd do in a photo walk. And then I was setting up to photograph this rusty building, and this guy walked in front of me, and he had a guitar slung on his back. I didn't know if he was going to perform, if he was a street performer, if he was taking lessons. I didn't know who he was. He just walked by. And I was like, hey. And I started talking to him. I'm like, your clothing looks really nice against this building, nice complementary colors. I had learned that in my street portraiture class. Do you mind if I take your picture? And he's like, and he's looking at me weird and nervous. And he's like, okay. He's like, but only if I can play original song. I said, great. So I started photographing him and he was super nervous and he gradually got out of his shell. And my friend is encouraging him and I'm encouraging him. And we're shooting A roll and B roll with the whole thing. And it was maybe 15 minutes and then it was over. The light was gone and everybody had to go. I got his contact information and he was like, oh my gosh, this meant so much to me. Thank you. Thank you. I'm like, no problem. I'll send you images. And 3 days later, my friend and I go walk in the French Quarter in the morning, early before the classes started. And we were talking like 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. And we're walking around. There's hardly anybody there. It's fun to photograph, early morning light. And all of a sudden I hear, Lisa, Georgia. And I'm like, all right, must be someone we know from the conference. And I turn around and walking towards us is the guy that we photographed with the guitar. And I was like, oh my gosh, his name was Kirk. I said, hi, Kirk, how are you? And he comes up and he's like, I just have to share this. He goes, I'm so glad I saw you. He said, that was the most meaningful experience to me. And I was like, it's okay. We had fun. I'm so glad this was good for you too. And I'll send you the pictures. And he's starting to cry. And I'm like, okay. And I wasn't sure, like, are you going to ask for more money? Like, I didn't know what he wanted. And he comes up even closer and he goes, no, he goes, I don't think you understand. He says, when I walked by you that night, he said, I've had all these issues going on in my life. I lost my job. My family's got issues, on and on and on. He goes, when I walked by you, he goes, I was on my way to commit suicide and you changed that. And long story short, I've kept in touch with him for years after that. And although he is deceased now, he really made me realize the importance of photographs and not just of people, but the interacting of people, even if it's a wildlife thing you're doing or whatever. But the connection that we as humans have with one another or should have with one another sometimes gets lost. And for whatever reason, at that moment, at that time, we were meant to meet. And that has always stuck with me with photography. So again, if you're doing people, even if you don't like it, these things can bring out experiences that are powerful to them and you. So keep up with it. All right. I am going to share. Well, does anybody else have anything to say before I move on to another question for you?
I don't think I can come up with anything after that story, Lisa.
It was
Wow.
powerful. It
That
was
is
powerful.
powerful. Yeah.
Yeah. And the neat thing is, though he did pass away some years later, not his fault. He was unfortunately hit by a car. His family found my stuff online and reached out to me and said, do you have any more pictures of Kirk? Like, he moved away. We don't have that much stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have a treasure trove of video and photos of him.
Yeah,
And I
wow.
sent him a whole bunch of stuff so that they had that for his funeral. So, you just never know. And that was pretty profound for me. And I always keep that in my heart because you just never know what's going to happen. Whether I'm leading a workshop and you're a client of mine or I'm photographing you or it is just as a community, I just think we need more connection with people. We have all this social media, but none of that is the same as even what we're doing tonight and how this can somehow be impactful down the road. The relationships that you've created, Linda, with these folks and vice versa. And I mean, that's meaningful. That matters. You've done this 300 times now. It's really neat what you create. It doesn't need to be thousands of people, a dozen or two. You can change their lives. And I think that's one of the things that we forget, that photos aren't just about the photography part. It's really the excuse me, the connection. So
Absolutely.
Can I say something? I always say there's no coincidences.
yeah.
Yeah. So you guys were supposed to be in that moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even when
agree.
I'm passing by somebody and they're taking the picture, or the mom, that one is the one that kills me. The mom that's taking the picture that's never in the picture.
Yes.
So I will be the one that says, do you want to get in the picture with them? And they look at you like you're crazy. Who's the stranger? And I'm like, no, you need to get in the picture,
Yeah.
and then they go, oh yeah, thanks. They forget about themselves.
Yeah.
And I've been that. I'm the mom of 4. I had the camera. So it's like, and my kids will be like, there goes mom again, because they're no longer my muses, but you were supposed to take those pictures.
I feel that way too. The repercussions of that moment have been multifold, and I know, I did keep in touch with him for quite a while, and unfortunately, he got hit by a car crossing a street, and but he had gotten his life back together. He had moved to California. He was doing better, and for that, I'm grateful. We don't always know our time, but he didn't end it. Later on, something else did in life, and you can think about that all you want, but it was definitely a formative experience for me and for him, and I'm grateful for it. Yeah. Anyone else? Thoughts, comments about any of this? I know this is supposed to be happiness hour. I didn't mean to take it down a notch.
I recently did the same thing. There was I go to this favorite restaurant here in Norwich, and it's a Haitian restaurant, and it's called Mommy's Delicious. And my friend, she opened it, and she's a fabulous chef. So if you're ever here, I'll probably take you guys there. Anyway, and their friend came in and was having a birthday, and they don't speak English. It's French Creole or whatever they were speaking. And my girlfriend goes, you have your camera with you. Take their picture. It's his birthday.
Oh.
And I'm like, okay. I didn't even think of it. She was like, you have your camera. So I went out in the back, and they were thrilled to have somebody with a real camera take a couple of pictures of this older gentleman and his wife. And she got all proud, and you could just see the body language just completely change and take the family picture. And I brought him home, and I edited him, cleaned him up a little bit, brightened him up, and just sent him off. Just no big deal. Just sent them off. And they said, how much will this cost? I said, absolutely nothing, but they'd never had anything done like that. And, it's something that we take for granted here. But I find that sometimes when people are, visiting this country, it's just not normal to have that kind of camera equipment. And it just was something so simple to do as a gift.
I agree with you. And similar in that serendipitous kind of situation, the people I took the workshop with, the street portraiture workshop, that night we were supposed to do the big portfolio. You're just walking up to random people. You don't know anything about them. They could be homeless. They could be, an elderly couple. They could be it's just all walks of life. And one of the photographers there that was taking the class walked up to a couple in a park, and they got talking. And it turns out that couple was just married a couple days earlier, and their photographer lost all their wedding photos. And they were on their honeymoon, and they had, I don't know what happened to the cards, something happened, and they lost them all. So this photographer in our class ended up taking a whole bunch of portraits of them in the park doing things. It wasn't their wedding photos, but it was something better than they would have gotten if they would have just shot with their cell phone, in theory. And, it was just sort of like, you're meant to be there at that moment to do that and give people that gift. And what a cool thing. I love that. All right, I'm going to share my screen again. And by the way, if this is interesting, helpful, if you want me to pivot to something else, I certainly can. I want this to be useful for you. So, but I want to know what got you started in photography. I've heard from a couple of you, but what got you started in photography, and what keeps you coming back?
Well, I'll tell you about my experience with photography, starting photography. When I was little, I was like maybe 5 years old, 6 years old, the Kellogg's cornflakes had prizes in them. And one of it was photographic paper, and you used the sun to expose the paper, and you had some chemicals, and that got me started.
Wow. So you had chemicals in your cereal.
Well,
That's amazing, though.
A little envelope,
How cool.
and directions. So that's
cool.
That's how I got interested in it, and I've been doing it ever since.
I think you should write to Kellogg's and tell them about that. I think that's a really neat story. That is very cool. And where it's taken you. I mean, obviously they're not doing those campaigns now. Do they even put toys in cereal anymore? I don't even know. I don't
No, not
buy
that I
cereal,
know.
but how cool is that? I love that. And it's kept you going all this time. Are you still using the same paper?
No, that was used up the first day.
So you had to go more boxes of cereal. I love it.
No.
I think that's very cool. I think you should write Kellogg's and tell them your story. I think that's super neat.
But the thing is I really didn't enjoy the darkroom work.
Yeah, that is a more of a it's a whole science unto itself. It's like Photoshop, right? And you
Yeah.
either love it or hate it. And I know people across the entire gamut. Yeah.
But I did do a lot of Cibachrome.
Oh, very cool. Oh, that's a really neat thing. That is very cool. And Shirley, you said, let's see here. I'm looking at all the I skipped one. Heidi. Heidi said, my dad started to keep me occupied on hikes. I remember that. I keep coming back because I can't imagine not sharing the wondrous places I visit. I agree. And then she said, right after high school, I was the grunt helper for the local photographer that took all the senior portraits, and he liked me and hired me to help him and his wife in their studio. That's quite awesome. And I forgot to ask, Vernon, what keeps you coming back to photography?
Yeah, I just love being out in nature, and I love the beauty of it. Like I moved down here to South Texas, 16 years ago, and I miss it's flat here. It's not scenic,
Hmm.
and it's like the scene behind you that just really uh, gives me, I don't know, I just love it. Those cactuses and the Smoky Mountains in the background, and
It's a
it,
beautiful spot. Yeah.
but unfortunately, I'm getting old and I can't get around to take pictures anymore very much. So
I I hope that you'll maybe consider, and you could even do this as a group if you live near each other, to have an abstract party. And think about abstracts as another way of expressing yourself when you can't get out as much, because to me, abstracts make phenomenal art. They're a little bit of the redheaded stepchild world in competitions. We don't see abstracts winning best of show. It's always the either the flashy portraits or landscapes or maybe a wildlife, where the tigers or the lion is chasing the impala, those kinds of things. But abstracts work so well and so beautifully in interiors. And you can do an abstract party. Everybody brings one box of crap from their house, like the bin in the basement of random tools or random things that you're going to throw out. And everybody puts it together, puts it out on the table, and you start photographing close ups. You can even do it with your cell phone. Your cell phones are serious cameras now. Yes, they don't have quite the capability of some of the DSLRs and mirrorless, but they also have capabilities that those cameras don't. And so I know you're not able to always get out into some of the places, but let the other things allow you to explore the genre with photography or even being able to go to botanical gardens and some of those things. Abstracts are infinite, they're cheap, and you don't have to, kill yourself physically to get out to some of those things. So that's just a thought of mine that I have. And hopefully you'll
I,
find
I
some joy.
enjoy taking pictures of butterflies and flowers,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
also I'm going through some of my older collections and going through and doctoring up the pictures a little bit, with cropping and color and
Yeah.
using my new software.
Exactly. Exactly. I have a client of mine who's no longer able to get out like she used to, and she has recycled pictures from 10 years ago on workshops that she went with me and used some of the fun new apps and the creative things and created all kinds of stuff. Some of it with AI, but who cares? it's your creation and you can put your own spin on it. You know, you're not saying, oh, gee, I made this from scratch, but just to re-envision the joy that you had with those photos, I think is a great thing as well. You know, there's always times when some of us are down and we can't go to something, whether it's physical, financial, work related, whatever, but there are little joys that you can find. And gosh, with cell phones now, they do so much, so much. It's serious. I have had every year for the last few years on my Alaska workshops, people that just come with their cell phone and we teach them great ways to photograph stuff and they come away with awesome stuff. And that's joy, right? You're in the moment and you're capturing it. So I hope
Yeah,
you can continue to do that.
you have it right there in your pocket.
Yes. But they say the best camera is the one that you have with you. So, you know, knock yourself out. And I will also say, like, you go buy a new cell phone, it's like $1,600. I'm like, this is a $1,600 camera. You know, cell phones are serious business. I'm going to read a couple other things here, and then I'll pick your brain a little bit more. But Kathy said, I'm an only child, and farm animals and birds are around every day, as well as mother's flowers. I love that. Since they were around me, I wanted them to stay with me. Photography allowed me to keep them when I needed the friends. I love it. I love that. Just love that. And Joe said, my dad got me my first camera when I was in second or third grade, and I've been interested ever since. I always take my camera with me because you never know what you might want to photograph. I agree. And when you don't is always when you see the thing. That's inevitably when you don't have your camera with you is when those magical moments are there. At least we have our cell phones more now. Kevin said, I was terribly homesick when I went away to college. My mom brought me a 35 millimeter Yashica rangefinder camera. Very good. With a great lens to take my mind off wanting to go home. It almost failed as I seriously considered dropping out to become a professional wildlife photographer. Well, Kevin, I'm glad you didn't drop out. I'm sure your career did you well, but I'm glad that you still are doing the photography. I love it. And then Shirley wrote, maybe for Vernon, there's a local photo club that can help him get out and about on photo shoots. That's a great piece of advice as well. Okay, I am going to share my screen here briefly, and I want to know, I'm going to skip a couple of those until the end. By the way, when you ask me what my favorite image is, it's one of my favorites. It's still really hard to pick my favorite. But the reason why I like this image so much is because it breaks a bunch of rules. I photographed it with my iPhone 6 through the windshield of a car when it was drizzly rain and the windshield's going back and forth, and I'm trying to take pictures and time it right after the swipe. And this was supposed to just be a photograph for a friend of mine when I was in Custer State Park and we were photographing whatever was there, and these three pronghorn were there. And I took the photo as a documentation shot, and I took a little video as well. And it ended up being one of my favorite photos. And that's because, again, it broke all the rules. It's a butt shot, yet I love it. It has the hand of man in it, which is often something we're told in nature photography to be a no-no. The sky is white, which I love, white and gray skies. I love doing high key photography. And again, it was through the car, through the windshield, all those things. Still one of my favorites. And that's one of the reasons I love it, is it proves to me that all the rules are out there and all of them are meant to be broken in the right circumstances. And I use it as some inspiration for people who are concerned, they don't have the right gear. It's like, I not only had crappy gear, older cell phone, but I was doing this through a windshield and rain and 1,000 other things were problematic, and we still did it. So hopefully that'll give you a little bit of inspiration. But I do have some questions before I go. Does anybody want to pick my brain about anything skills based? I just threw some topics out here of ones that we could cover perhaps. Is there anything that you want to pick my brain about? I've picked yours quite enough tonight.
Just real quickly, I want to go back to the last question you have, not necessarily the beginning, but what keeps you in it. Is I retired 5 years ago, and I had a great career, loved it, but knew I wanted to do other things. But the one thing that I was concerned about retirement was not learning anything new. And so I think that's one of the things about photography is I continually think there's always something new to learn. And I think that's, of course, for somebody who now is 70, really an important thing to do and to have that. So that was just my comment on the last one.
Yeah.
You mentioned high key just a few minutes ago. So
Yeah.
what do you think and I enjoy some high key as well, but what do you think are the most critical elements when it comes to high key photography? And do you have any like post-processing tips that you would throw in there?
Sure. Let me just share my screen quickly because I do have some slides prepared on this that I'm going to skip ahead to real quickly. So high key, if you're not familiar with high key, I'll show you a couple examples. I will cover this quickly, so I'm going to apologize in advance that, this isn't a full class on this. I do offer classes on that, but this is an abbreviated version. But if you haven't seen high key photography before or not sure what it is, this is an example. So I have a subject with a pure white background. Now, that is a matter of interpretation, my definition. For me personally, I almost always make sure my background is pure white, and I have some subject that's going to work well in there. And what you need, and I'm going to skip ahead again on this, what you need to do the high key, I'm going to scroll way ahead if I can have this work. Let me find some examples here. Here we go. Okay. So what you need for high key is something that starts like this. So my exposure meter on my camera is at 0 in this picture. And I realize this picture looks terrible. It's at 0. What I'm looking for out in the field is a background much brighter than my subject. And then most likely you're not going to want any part of your subject brighter than your background. So if you're doing high key with eagles or Canada geese or black-necked stilts, the whites of the birds still have to be darker than the background. So this is just a snapshot of like the before. And then this is the snapshot of the after. I ended up waiting for the bird to get into a little better position, and then I overexposed. How much you overexpose depends on what you're dealing with, but in this case, this was 2.7 stops overexposed. So almost 3 full clicks to the right, not just the little third of a stop tick, but almost 3 full stops overexposed. That lightens up the bird so that the background you can see the detail in the feathers is there. The background goes white. The water is white except for the little ripple, and I still have detail in the feathers here. So those are things that I'm chronically looking for in high key. That is the secret. If you don't have that, it's really, really hard to make a high key image afterwards. Let me see if I have any others to show you. I only threw a few photos in here. But the other thing that people will ask me is, well, can I take a picture of anything and make it high key? If your definition is your background is white or really light in color, technically, yes, you can take this blue background on this red-tailed hawk and make it white, but it's going to look like crap. So what you end up with is something like this. And notice how cut out it looks. Notice how the shadows look weird. It almost looks like a graphic design of something you would cut out. Like, here's an ad for the, local bird conservatory, and it's just a cutout bird on on an advertisement somewhere. It does not look painterly. It doesn't look beautiful. It looks awkward and high contrast. So those kinds of things just don't work if you're doing and just making your background white. I mean, here's the same photo that's the natural photo. Here's one that is cut out and it just looks pitiful. So, to each their own, but I find those things to not really work very well when we're talking about high key. A lot of it is finding the right subject to background ratio. So again, going back to this sample, my background is much brighter than my subject. The other thing that's critical is you do not want directional light on your subject, which means you need to have open shade. You need to have, a diffuser if it's a flower or something like that. In this case, the sun is behind clouds and behind the bird. So you just get those light gray waters. on an overcast day, or using blue hour, like I was here, that works well. But you can't have directional light, or by the time you start overexposing, you're going to have blown out areas of that picture. As far as kind of alluding more to your question, once I've covered the basics, I personally prefer images that are more, what do I want to say, more ethereal. And I deleted a lot of the example pictures because I didn't think I'd have much time. Here's a few that I'll bring up. But I like things with the white background that are more ethereal, simple. High key offers a lot of simplicity. There's an eagle in high key. It just, yes, that is its actual position. Here's another one, but here's what I'm warning about. If you do not, hopefully this shows up on your screen as well. If you do not have the eagle head darker than the sky behind it, you're going to end up blowing out some portion of these feathers, and that's going to be problematic. So that's something I really am picky about when I'm studying a subject out in the field. Here's another high key of a Galapagos dove. So those are my personal criteria. The other thing, and I think we're finally seeing a switch in the trend of all of this, but judges typically have not warmed up as much to high key because, the rule that I was taught when I was a kid is don't ever shoot birds against a white sky or anything else. And what they meant was these overcast skies, because the sky isn't very interesting, it doesn't print well, it's gray, it's boring. But I actually have fallen so much in love with doing it this way that if somebody told me I could only shoot one genre the rest of my life, it would be high key. And if not that, it would be low key, which is the dark, moody kind of stuff. Is that helping with your question? Can I take it in an angle that would help something better for you?
No, that was great. So can you take something that's kind of borderline that and then finish it off with post-processing?
Yes. So be very careful. I would make sure your lighting is very soft. You don't want to do harsh lighting. It just will look fake, like those pictures I showed you before. But you can certainly select the image and invert it so you just have the background. Let's just say it's a bird. Select the bird, invert it so you just have the background, or try the background selection. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And then you can lighten that background. What I look for is any gradient to go away. So you can do high key and you could be 3 stops overexposed, but you still might have, depending on your background, a little element of light gray. Go and compare that to pure white, or go and sample your background color using your eyedropper in Photoshop or in Lightroom or Camera Raw, and make sure you don't have any weird gradients, because the minute you put that into a frame or you start putting 4 or 5 of those on the wall next to each other, those gradients are going to show up even when they're super subtle. So I would work on that, and then I would also work on balancing out your shadows, because I like my pictures to be a little more painterly feeling. So I don't often have, unless it's something black. And even then, when you sample the color in my high key, it really ends up more of a mid-tone charcoal color. But I don't like super harsh shadows in my high key, or dark tones. I like to flatten the contrast in that, so it's not a steep S-curve like what we've always been told. And for me, that gives me a more painterly look. So if you are taking something from the archives, try that, and then just watch your noise, because you may find you end up bringing out some noise, and then you'll have to deal with that with some of the software tools that are available.
I said there's not enough time. That whole picture, I want her to talk about all of them. I mean, it's like, it's just, everybody in this room is just, I'm like a beginner. So, for me, it's always comes back to really the tack sharp picture. Like, I have an issue with focus, or is it me? Is it like tonight I was, messing with the dials, and I don't have the mechanics of the photography, right? So I'll just keep switching the film. So when I was the grunt, it was literally just take the stuff and drop it off. And I wasn't really paying attention to photography back then. And then fast forward, when I, keep the camera and just, start playing with it, it's like I haven't learned the camera and the functions. And so like tonight, I was like, somebody said to me, we're on a photo shoot one day, and he's like, you're shooting really slow. And I'm like, okay, don't know what that is. It's like I have no idea how to fix that, And so tonight I was consciously thinking that it's like, okay, that was really slow. So if I go this way, so it's that. It's like, and then there's just not enough time. So somebody pay me to learn all this, please, and I will quit my day job and get a van by the river and fix concrete.
Well,
So.
you are like all of us when we got started with photography. I mean, there's not a photography fairy that bequeathed all of us with this knowledge. And there's still plenty of knowledge that is out there and vague that we don't understand. I know people who do deep space photography. I wouldn't know where to begin shooting the nebulas. I mean, it's all its own genre. And that's what's so fun and also a little bit challenging. But here's what I would say, just like in the little time that we have left, and we can dig much deeper into this. But here's what I would say. If you're going out, and I'm going to make an assumption that you're doing portraiture or wildlife or something that's moving, not a landscape. But my number one thing is I look at it. Is it moving fast or slow? Right? And if it's a rock, it's moving pretty slow. If it's a person standing there for a portrait, pretty slow. If it's flowers blowing in the breeze, a little faster. If it's a bird flying through the sky, even faster. Your number one, in my opinion, decision for those kinds of things is going to be based on shutter speed. So if you got 3 ways to let light into the camera, each of those have side effects. Shutter speed is the one you need to get right first. If it's not shutter speed, you got a blurry picture, it's not going to be good. You blur the face of a family, not going to be good. So number one decision, shutter speed. Is it moving fast? Maybe fast, medium, or slow? And then you set some guidelines. If it's slow, maybe you shoot at, I'm going to say like a person standing there, maybe you shoot at 2/50th of a second. That's going to be plenty enough to freeze them. If it's flowers blowing in the breeze, or a dog running in the park, you're maybe going to be at somewhere between 500 to 1,000th of a second, depending on how fast. If it's a eagle flying in the sky, you're probably going to be at 1,250 to 1,600. If it is a really fast moving bird or a race car, you might be at 2,000 to 3,200. So kind of having those guidelines in a really generic way. I realize there's a lot of specificity you can get into, but ballpark, if you make your shutter speed decision first based on the outcome that you want, and usually it's freeze the action. There is something called intentional camera motion or panning where you get all the blur, but let's save that for the next time. Shutter speed is the number one decision. If you don't get that right, nothing else matters. After that, aperture. Do you want a blurrier background? Do you want a sharper background? If you're photographing families and you have 2 rows of people, you need to make sure the eyes in the first row and the eyes in the second row are sharp. And that has to do with aperture. There are multiple ways to learn it, but I will say this. The closer you are to your subjects, the shallower the depth of field. I don't care what your aperture is. You could be on f/16, f/22, but if you are close to your subjects, think portraiture, your depth of field is going to be shallower than if you stood further back. But if you zoom in, that kind of cancels a little of that out. But you might find that a group portrait, you might need to be at f/8, f/11, or stand back a little more. Take a test shot or two. Zoom in. Are those eyes in focus, both layers or 3 rows or however many it is? So your decision on aperture comes after shutter speed. Doesn't matter how beautiful your bokeh is if the picture is blurry. So aperture next. And the last thing to come is ISO, and I treat that like spackling compound. Once I get my shutter speed figured out and then my aperture, I only have a little bit of wiggle room with my ISO because I don't want the picture too bright or too dark. And so then I'll use ISO. Some people will use auto, some people use manual. Whether you use auto or manual, you're going to end up at the same number if you fix the first 2 things. Like it can only be one thing unless you want to overexpose or underexpose. And those are good decisions to try too. Sometimes I do want to overexpose or under. Again, chapter 2, but the ISO is the third thing. And so for you getting started, you may find, and obviously there's wiggle room in all of this and exceptions to every rule. just walk around and think about it. You don't even have to shoot it. What shutter speed might I shoot that bird sitting there, or that car driving by, or that kid going down the street in a bike, or that flower sitting there in calm wind, or whatever, and just be thinking about it to the point where it feels automatic. Certainly take your test shots, but get comfortable with that. And then ISO, because that's the next decision. Do you want it sharp or not so sharp? And a lot of people, when they're doing portraits, will say, all right, well, I want the background to be blurry behind the people. Or maybe they're doing a bird portrait and I want the background to be blurry. Or maybe not, because I want to see that mountain in the background. Those decisions are your vision. So, hey, here's a bird or a person or a chair or whatever I'm photographing. How do I want the background to look? Do I want it to tell more of a story? Here's an Adirondack chair on a dock and there's a boat out in the lake and I want to see both. Or I just want to see a hint of the boat. Those are storytelling decisions in most cases. And then make your choice. But you could shoot at an aperture of f2 and you will not have blur nearly like will you do if you shoot at f2 and you are standing closer to your subject than everything else is behind your subject. So if you want to add more blurry background, you could shoot at f2, f3, f8, f16, it doesn't matter. But if your subject is 10 feet from you and 30 feet from the bushes behind them, you will end up with more blur than if you are 10 feet from your subject and your subject is 5 feet from the bushes behind them. Always put more distance between your subject and the background than you have between you and your subject, and you will get more blur. And then, of course, the wider the aperture, the lower the number, that will help too. Am I making sense so far?
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely.
And do you have a question about that so far? I have one little more tip for you, and I'm sure you're like drinking water through a fire hose, but
no, I don't want to take up everybody's time because I told Linda that. I said, this will be a dangerous phone call. So it'll be
let me give you one more tip because it might help somebody else too. But I know aperture gets to be like, and what numbers and high numbers and low numbers. Here's my little tool to help you remember it. How deep is the shallow end of a pool, ballpark?
12 feet.
3 feet.
3 feet?
Oh, the shallow end?
Yep, shallow end of a pool.
I thought you said deep end.
Sorry. Yep, shallow end. Let's just call it 3 feet.
Yeah,
How about a deep end of a pool?
12 feet.
12 feet. All right. Shallow depth of field, shallow numbers. So you want shallow depth of field, your wider aperture, where you're going to get more of that blur in the background, shoot in the shallower end of the pool, meaning, f3.5, f4, f5.6, f2.8. Those shallow numbers give you the shallow depth of field. In the deeper depth of field is with the deeper numbers where more things are in focus. So deep end of the pool, f11, f14, f16, f22. The deeper into the pool you go, the deeper your depth of field. And so if that helps you when you're trying to play with all these knobs and bells and whistles, shallow depth of field, shallower end of the pool, shallow numbers. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a good one. I haven't heard that one before.
All right. And maybe we can do something again, Linda, where, we can delve into something very specific.
I would love that. I'm not going to say no.
You have it on the record.
I think I would be hung out to dry if I said no. Lisa, I think it's done. The hate mail, the hate text that I would get after this call.
I fly to Texas to give you that V8 pop in the head.
Oh my goodness. I will just say one more thing before I go. If any of you are interested, we are coming out with, it's been a long time coming, but we are coming out with an app, and we are going to be releasing information about that soon, but there'll be classes and things available in there. And I teach my classes very differently than what most of your online classes are, you will have learned. It's very interactive. It's very supportive. We'll have a community behind that. And you can click on the link that I just sent you to join the Click, which is my newsletter. And I don't spam. I don't even send stuff that often. But if I'm opening up a workshop, you will get announcements and dates so that you can be ready to register. If we're opening up that app, we'll be giving you information about that and occasionally other things. But it's very low key. You won't feel like you're being spammed, but you will get the information that you need. But that's all. So if I can help with anything, hopefully this got you thinking a little bit about photography. And I certainly love the technical side too. I wasn't sure how things would go tonight because this is very freeform, but I appreciate you hanging out with me. And apparently, Linda, we can do it again.
Oh, yay, yay. Okay, let me just say for 300 sessions, I could not have selected a better speaker for tonight.
Aww,
I mean, this was
you.
just a great, a little bit of peppering in those questions and answers. And I always get a little nervous when when speakers want to go live. And it's like, no, it's really hard on the editing. It wasn't so bad at all. You broke my spirit. So I would welcome you to do this anytime you want to. Lisa,
Good.
thank you so much for spending your Wednesday night with us. I hope that you feel the love in the room because this is wonderful. This just made my day. So
Thank you. This is the kind of environment I love to create. So we are so like-minded and I could do this all day long. Like I love photography. I hate it when it gets so stoic and academic and too serious. Like this is supposed to bring joy to people. And yes, we need to learn it and those things, but not at the expense of the joy. And so this was very fun. I adored meeting you in person, right? At least face to face. And all of you, thank you for being here. Thanks for being a part of my world too. It goes both ways. So I appreciate it.
I appreciate that. All right, let me go ahead and close out this session.
Okay.
But first I want to say next week, Samantha Mahanta, you guys might know him. He goes by Sim. I've persuaded him to come back, and by persuade, I didn't even have to use blackmail. So he'll be back here next week with his presentation, Mood for Thought, the Art of Moody Photography. So y'all have a great night, and I hope that we see you again soon. All right.